I'm going to layer into the word responsibility today some other words like guilt, circumstances, and opportunity. Rest and the Sabbath day. I'm going to try and weave a thread through each one of those. When I looked at the word responsibility, I did a weekly message, probably back in 7 or 8 years ago, when my daughter was still in high school, and the word responsibility is one of the words that I drilled into her head, along with respect and discipline. And as I researched responsibility even further this week, as I brought that message out, I wanted to see what biblical principles were around it. And it says the principal ingredient in the biblical concept of guilt appears to be the dimension of responsibility. So I was riddled with some guilt this week, and I'll share that as we go on a little bit further. The principal ingredient in the biblical concept of guilt. How many of us have ever felt guilt before? We all have, yeah. It's a dimension of our responsibility. We're guilty because of something we didn't take responsibility for. And we feel guilty for it a little bit later down the line. We're like, got some regrets for that. We are accountable for what we do and for the consequences of what comes about. So whenever we have that responsible notion and we do something different, we are being held accountable and there's going to be consequences. And the accountability lies at the center of the biblical understanding of guilt. So great was the sense of responsibility that the people would be guilty without being aware that they had done anything wrong. Okay, I had no idea they did anything wrong. I'm going to read from Leviticus 5, verses 17 through 19. Oops. And if a soul sin and commit any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of the Lord, though he know not, yet he is guilty and shall bear his iniquity. So he may not know he's doing something wrong, but he's going to share in the guilt. And he shall bring a ram without blemish out of the flock. And basically we're doing an offering for the trespass. It's called the trespass offering. And the priest does this offering. And he makes atonement concerning his ignorance. For he knew not, and he shall be forgiven. It is a trespass offering that he has trespassed against the Lord. So guilt, the sin, it's a trespass, and they did a trespass offering at that time. So even if they didn't think they did anything wrong, they still were going to do this offering just in case. Just in case I did something wrong, because they maybe didn't have the knowledge of it. So in the Old Testament, guilt was depicted as a burden or a weight that could crush a person. I felt that same burden or weight on my shoulders this week as I thought about my consequences, as I thought about my responsibility, as I thought about, was I really doing the right thing? So there's a debt that we must pay, and I talk about in Numbers 5:8, chapter 5, verses 5 to 8. We go to Numbers. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, when a man or a woman shall commit any sin that men commit, to do a trespass against the Lord, and that person will be guilty. Then they shall confess their sin which they have done, and he shall recompense his trespass with the principal thereof, and add to it the fifth part therein, and give it to him against whom he has trespassed. So basically, God is saying to Moses, we have to make known what we believe is a sinful thing. Now I'm going to tie this in a little bit here. Last week, I wasn't with the fellowship. And I wasn't with the fellowship because I felt I was a victim of circumstances. Have we ever been caught up and become a victim of circumstances? And it's a situation that you really can't get out of. I felt I was doing the right thing when my nieces came to me and said, when your community has a day of advertising in the paper, we would like to help sell portions of our mother's estate. Can we have the stuff here on that day? And months ago, I said, of course you can. Sure. You know, opening my house up. But I also, as people know, I have the jewelry stuff I bring down from the attic, and I had a commitment from my son-in-law and my daughter were going to come up. Hey, I got it covered. Okay? I'm letting the nieces use the place. My son-in-law and daughter are going to be here. I can still fellowship with the people and do what I believe is the right thing to be doing. Well, as circumstances would have it, I got caught up in these circumstances, and my son-in-law and daughter said, we're not coming until Saturday night because we decided to do something else. Now, do I make my nieces mad and say, I don't think I want to be there, and I don't want you here by yourselves, so no, don't bring your stuff over. I had already made a commitment to them, so I felt guilty if I was going to say no to them. I felt guilty because what I was doing was shirking on my responsibility for what I should be doing on the Sabbath day. I'm like, okay. So I looked at it as an opportunity. I looked at it as an opportunity. I said to myself, okay, possibly there's an opportunity here because Jesus looked at opportunities. Biblical characters also had guilt. Adam and Eve, you think they had some guilt?
A lot.
What about Cain, after he'd done off his brother Abel? Think he had some guilt?
No.
Okay, they all had some guilt. Because they weren't responsible. They shirked their responsibility. Okay? I shirked my responsibility, but then I looked at it, is it an opportunity? And I started to think about biblical stories, and I said, well, what would Jesus do? Well, it's ironic that the Jewish leaders didn't like Jesus because he did what on the Sabbath?
Helped others.
Helped others.
Healed
people. So I'm saying, okay, is this an opportunity for me to be helpful? Is this an opportunity for me to witness? Well, can I make the best of a bad situation? Can I make something better in the circumstances? So, I played Christian music on the radio while the yard sale was going on, and I did have opportunity to witness to people. So that circumstance, that condition, that event that took me away from the fellowship, I'm saying, well, in some people's eyes, I am breaking the Sabbath law. Okay, I'm not keeping the Sabbath. Well, what is the Sabbath? The Sabbath is, and Linda and I did some Bible studies this week. It prompted us to even really focus on some things. The Sabbath is really defined as a day of rest from work. Generic definition in the Bible, I found it. Rest from work, because Jesus, God, worked on 6 days, created the earth. He rested from that work of creation. What is work? Work could be something physical that you do all week. Okay, that is your work. Or it could be mental that you do all week. That is your work. So how do we define rest? What is rest?
Not doing that.
Not, I struggled with what is rest. Man decided, okay, to incorporate worship into the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day was intended to strictly be for rest, relaxation, and that's defined in Hebrews 9, chapter 4, verse 9. A rest like that God when He has finished all the creation itself. It's a physical rest. Rest from weariness. If you're at a job and you're using your head all week, you're brain dead by the end of the week. You want to rest. You want to rest your brain because you want that to relax and to rejuvenate. Or if you're physical, you want to rest the body and maybe you want to use your brain. Let's do something real quick. Everybody close your eyes. Now, you've heard of the cleansing breath. I'd like everybody to take in a long, deep, slow breath, hold it to the count of 1,001, and let it go. Do that 3 times. Keep your eyes closed and breathe normally. Let's start. Ready? Long, deep breath. And slowly let it out. Let her slow, deep breath. And slowly let it out. Let her deep breath. And slowly let it out. Now breathe normal. Keep your eyes closed. Was that relaxing? Was that relaxing? A cleansing breath. Just take a few seconds and you can really feel your physical go into a relaxed state. The entire body or the mind by taking a cleansing breath. So and truly on the Sabbath day of rest, I was wrestling with this. Was I keeping the Sabbath? Wasn't I keeping the Sabbath? But I looked at it as the opportunity. Okay? It's not easy to face circumstances that are beyond your control. So I perceive myself to be a victim of circumstances. But I tried to look at it as if it was a plan for me. Okay? I had planned one thing. Think about it. I had planned my nephew, or my son-in-law, my daughter, to cover and do that. It's what I wanted. God didn't want that to happen, I thought. God has a plan. So I said, well, maybe this is a plan for me to find a positive experience that's hidden within this activity. And I did have witnessing opportunities. Not only did I have witnessing opportunities for that day, but the biggest one came on Monday afternoon. Monday afternoon, I had to go to a water loss, and the last name of the household was Goldstein. Okay? So right away I noticed it's a Jewish home.
Fine Jewish name.
Okay, fine Jewish name. Well, the wife was home, but she wasn't Jewish by birth. She was Methodist and converted into the Jewish religion for her husband. I didn't know that. She kind of looked Jewish to me, you know. So we're talking, and she said, I'm asking what they do, you know, what's your husband do? Well, he has a jewelry store down in Jewelers Row. I said, oh, interesting. I said, I got costume jewelry. I said, I just sold last Saturday. Oops, I probably shouldn't have been doing it on Saturday. And she looked at me, she said, what are you talking about? She said, you're not Jewish. And I said, well, I kind of do believe in the Sabbath day, and we have our fellowship on that day. And this just sparked her right up. She says, really? And then she told me she was a Methodist converted to Jewish, you know, religion. And she said, you know, I really kind of think that maybe the Jewish people should be thinking about God did die on the cross, and maybe that is probably the right day. And maybe you guys have something going on here different than other churches. She went to my website. So I gave her the website. That was by far the best witnessing opportunity I had as a result of the circumstances that I was thrown into. The opportunity that I felt God gave me. Now what happens in situations like this? Others may look at what you're doing, but not realize what's in your heart. And all of a sudden what we're doing is we're judging, and we shouldn't be judging anybody. I do it, we judge people by what they're doing. We're not looking at what's in their heart or what circumstance that they have had that they've been put into. So sometimes we're led in a different direction to do something that we didn't plan to do. Are we unveiling and finding a positive opportunity in there because maybe God is leading us there?